1960, several groundbreaking horror films were released around the world. Psycho in the US, Peeping Tom in the UK, and in France, a filmmaker named Georges Franju unleashed a poetic and stylish shocker upon unsuspecting viewers. It was so disturbing that it proved to be too much for some audiences and critics. When it was released in North America 2 years later, it was severely edited to make it more palatable, but it quickly vanished, and it seemed for a while like it was doomed to be nothing more than one half of a long-forgotten drive-in double feature, until something happened that made people realize that this was one of the most important horror films ever made.
I am New York City zero-budget guerrilla filmmaker Sean Weathers.
And I'm Canadian screenwriter and playwright Angus Combe. And for the next 2 hours, we'll be guiding you through Georges Franju's art house horror masterpiece, Les Yeux Sans Visage, or Eyes Without a Face. The No Rules Film School is now in session.
See, you being a French Canadian finally pays off, huh? You can pronounce these names, I can't.
Well, I'm not a French Canadian, but I'm a Canadian who was forced to take French in school because we're considered bilingual. But yeah, my French was actually pretty good up until I was about 14, and then didn't really use it much after that. So it's not what it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
But
better than mine, which is at 0. So you're gonna help because there's a lot of French people in this French production.
That's true. I'll do my best.
So the only thing I really dislike about this movie is the music.
Oh yeah.
It really sets a tone with the visuals. The cinematography is amazing. The locations look really gothic. And then it kills it all with this like Looney Tunes like score. It's so weird. It undercuts its own momentum.
It is a bit weird. It's by Maurice Jarre, who did a lot of great scores. It almost seems like circus music at times, and there's one theme that reminds me of a piece of music that they use on Curb Your Enthusiasm. I don't know if you watched that show, but
of course,
it's that same kind of
when you
tone,
said it now, I can't get it out of my head. That is what it sounds like.
Yeah, exactly. So that is a bit bizarre, yeah, now that you mention it.
Yeah. It's a beautiful looking movie, even at the start. The only thing that undercuts the visuals is the rare projection.
Yeah.
It's like it looks so beautiful, it looks so creepy, but then the rare projection looks so fake.
Yeah.
It's just like, fuck, why didn't they just go the extra mile and just do a real driving scene? Because it's not like there's that much driving in the movie. I wish they would have went that extra mile. That is the only visual aspect of the movie I don't like. Otherwise, it's amazing cinematography. It's amazing locations and real locations. A lot of on-location shooting, which really makes the rare projection stand out. None of it seems like it's in a set. Everything looks beautiful, but then this rare projection just comes up and it's like, oh.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Composition, everything was great.
Yeah, I guess I just tend to ignore that. I just accept that as, was something they used to do, and I guess audiences were more willing to accept that back then.
I mean, I can accept it in like a Hitchcock movie because half of the movie looks artificial, and he intentionally makes it look artificial. So he has plenty of that stuff. Like, it's easier to accept in a movie like that. It's harder to accept in a movie like this where everything looks so beautiful, and then you get that damn rare projection. It's like a modern day movie that it's great, but then it has like terrible CGI scene. It's like, where'd that terrible CGI scene come from? So
True enough. I have to say, I love this opening scene here. I think this is a great way to start the movie, and you really wonder what the hell is going on here.
Did we figure out the term for movies that open up with a scene that's exciting? Is it like a hot open or something? I know there's a term for it. I don't know if we figured it out. There is a term for movies that open up with like a really great scene, then it settles you into the rest of the plot,
Yeah, I'm not sure. Something we'll have to look up later in the No Rules Film School library, perhaps. But
there's homework.
But I just homework. Yeah, I love this though. Like you don't know what's going on, and And at first I thought that that figure in the back seat might be alive, and might be kind of threatening, but now clearly no. This woman is dumping a body, which I think is this must have been somewhat shocking to audiences. You just don't expect to see that. It'd
What
be
should we
more
call her
often.
by her real name or her character name?
Well, whatever you prefer.
What's her real name? How do you pronounce that? I'm
Her
not on
real name,
IMDb. I know she was in The Third Man. I liked her in that a lot. I
yes, you're
recognized her
right.
right away.
You're right. Yes. Her real name. Where is it?
You're so prepared as always.
I've got so
Her
many
her
things.
her character name I think is Louise.
Alida Valli. Alida Valli. That's the
Mm,
actress.
Alida Valli. Well, Alida
Yes.
Valli, she was really good in The Third Man. So here we have
Yes.
the basic setup of the mad scientists with some pseudoscience talk at the beginning. Reminds me of a
Yes.
lot of these mad scientist movies in old Hollywood because it's black and white as well. The one that
Yeah.
really sticks out is like the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde because they had a
Oh yeah.
similar scene like this to start off Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde where he's talking and like I think he was talking to like other scientists or something
Yeah.
and explaining the pseudoscience about what's going on, and then they have the discussion that sets a tone, and then you get into all the fantastical stuff. So yeah, it has a very um familiar setup,
Yeah.
some kind of
Yeah.
action builds up suspense and mystery, what's going on. We get an
Yeah.
introduction to the lead character, establishing okay the rules of the game here. Like, all right, we're gonna suspend our disbelief for what he's explaining in this scene, and then I think the following scene is where we meet our inept cops. Cops are always inept in movies for some reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Often seems to be the
Well, I guess
case.
if they were good, the movie would end too quickly, right?
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah. Um, I was going to say it reminded me of several Frankenstein movies. Often Dr. Frankenstein is lecturing at a university or something like that.
Yeah, those are
So
some of the
that's,
best mad scientist movies.
yeah, yeah. Um,
That's all you wanted to cut in and say. I'm like, all right, you take the floor. I'm like, I've been cutting you off. Let me let you cook, and you
yes,
cooked
well,
up nothing. You cooked up boiling water.
yes. But what
But
I
here we
was,
have our inept cops here.
yes, exactly. But I wanted to say about Alida Valley, I think that's part of the shock to the audience is that they recognized her. I'm sure when they saw this, because she was a very famous actress, and in fact, she had been once referred to by Mussolini, of all people, as the most beautiful woman in the world. And so she was like instantly recognizable as this beautiful movie star. And then to see her dumping a body like this at the beginning of the movie, it just must have been a real shock for the audience.
Yeah. I was kind of shocked here in this scene after seeing the rear projection that this was like a real location. I
Yeah.
just assumed it'd be like a soundstage or something. But when he looks through the mirror, you realize, oh, this is a real location and it looks beautiful. The
Oh,
train is
yeah.
in the background and everything. I was like, wow,
Yeah.
real location. Even this shot here looks really great as well. So it was a nice
Yeah.
surprise because I was initially a little disappointed when I saw the rear projection. But,
That's one thing about European films is that they have access to such great locations, like a lot of old castles and places like that. Just really interesting architecture. We don't have as much of that in North America. Everything's a little too new.
yeah, it really adds to the gothic and horror feel of the movie. That's, of
Yes.
course, immediately undercut once you hear the score.
Yeah.
A little Last House on the Left-ish.
Mm-hmm.
Very dark movie with that comical music.
Yes. Yeah.
This
So
isn't very
this,
scary for a horror movie.
no, No, well, the director didn't even really consider it to be a horror movie. He thought it was more about anguish. But I would say it is a horror movie, but it's also kind of a drama. You know, it's just a good human drama. Um, like a lot of the best horror films are really. They're not just
I'm sorry,
gimmicks
let me
or
do my Canadian to English translation. He meant to say drama. Drama, that is drama.
thank you.
Continue, continue.
It's a very divisive thing,
I'm
drama.
sorry, divisive, divisive thing. Go ahead, continue.
Yes. So, of course, when you watch this movie for the first time, you don't really understand exactly what's happening in this scene. But I think this is a very dark scene. Once you kind of figure out what's really going on, I think that this is kind of disturbing.
Yeah. So the characters in this movie are very interesting. The central characters. I mean, not to critique this film because I did enjoy it a lot. I mean, we should establish that. I mean, I did
Hmm.
really like this movie, and this has been on my watch list for a very, very long time because it's something I
Yeah.
heard about like decades ago when I was really young, and I just never got around to watching it. Um, but the characters are interesting, but they don't really develop them much. So this, I mean, I guess we can get into deeper into the characters as the story progresses, but there's potential for like some really good character development with them, but it's very much surface level. Everything that is beneath the surface, you kind of have to fill in the blanks yourself. After watching it, you're like, oh yeah, that is pretty crazy, like what they went through and
Yeah.
what he did and why he did it. But that's in your head. It's not what's playing out on the screen. It kind of reminded me a little bit about Dune, another great visual movie. But a lot of the depth of the characters, it's from the books and it's from the analysis that you see online later. It's not in the actual movie itself.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of subtext going on here, and I mean this moment here, I just find this so dark and disturbing here. Um, you know, the one father looking for his missing daughter, and the other who's just identified the dead body of his daughter,
Yeah.
or so we think. And just that whole moment there, I just find that really there's something to that. It's very powerful,
Absolutely.
even
And just like
even more so.
another like 20-second scene of him just like driving in the car, feeling the guilt of that would have
Yeah,
added so much more weight. Not even a lot of time, but just like giving the actors a chance to, emote a little bit more, just
yeah,
to add a few more layers to it. But you're right. I mean, as long as you fill in the blanks, it's really, really compelling stuff.
yeah, yeah. And I guess at this point, the audience doesn't know
What
exactly how
is what
dark.
is she looking at? What is that?
Not sure.
It's like she was flipping through it like a bunch of papers and stuff. Is that a
Yeah,
paper store?
maybe a bookstore.
Oh,
I'm
what?
not sure. A
Oh, I've
bookstore.
heard of those.
Yeah, that's right. This is 1960. People read books.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What, didn't they have Kindles or like audiobooks back then?
Well, I think only the very rich, I think it was a very new thing. I don't think most people had that.
1960s, the Stone Age, man.
That's right. Yeah.
I guess she's in a monolith. What's that called? That a monolism?
Mausoleum?
Mausoleum. Yeah,
Mausoleum, yeah.
mausoleum.
And here we have the three mourners, the father and
The
his,
Son and the Holy Spirit.
yeah, well, almost. The father and his, I guess, sort of almost fiance-in-law, I guess we could say. And
Yeah.
then this woman, who, of course, we've seen dump a body. Um,
I guess
so
that's his Igor.
yeah, I think most movies would have a man or an Igor doing the job, but here we have you know, one of the most beautiful women in the world doing this job.
That's subjective.
It is. Mussolini was sure, though.
Mhm. Mussolini was probably a horn dog. Most of these artists are just like, you read up on them. They're a lot similar to like Cosby and P. Diddy and Epstein than you'd like to imagine.
Yeah,
The thing I liked about this movie, and that kind of scared me off a little bit, is it's a little intimidating watching an artistic foreign film
hmm
because you're going to think, man, I got to read what's going on. But the whole point of this movie is that it's artistic, so you have to pay attention to the visuals. But the story is so simple and
yeah,
the dialogue is so sparse that honestly, if you didn't have subtitles, you'd know exactly what's going on in the movie. I
yeah,
mean, you wouldn't know like certain finite details, but
hmm
the story isn't that deep. It's a very basic setup. And everything
yes,
is told so well visually. And again, the
yeah,
dialogue is so sparse that it's not intimidating at all for
no,
anyone thinking about watching this one
no,
beyond our commentary.
yeah. I think that's another thing that a lot of the European filmmakers were very good at because they knew they were making movies that needed to play in different markets, so they would concentrate on visuals and not so much dialogue because hey, this has got to play every country in Europe, it's got to go around the world. um, I don't know if that's what Franju was thinking or not, but certainly something that a lot of the European filmmakers were very good at.
What's his name? Aju? Isn't that like a something you dip a beef sandwich into or something?
Franju.
Oh. Yeah, I know he's French and he dips in the au jus. It's a French au jus,
the
yeah.
the au jus.
Franju.
Yes, your beef dip. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
It's so great. The castle, the isolation, the
oh,
fact that
yeah,
it's so isolated and you only see the central characters adds to that whole,
yeah,
gothic feel. You don't see a
it
lot of
does.
extras until you need to see them on those scenes where she's like
Yeah,
hunting people down.
yeah, yeah. It's very. I can't help but pay attention when I see movies like this and they go into a really nice house. I can't help but just look at the house, look at the architecture, the furniture. There's something really fascinating about that.
Yeah. He's like a gothic Batman. Looks like a
Yeah,
stately Wayne Manor going
it
into
does. Yeah.
his Batcave.
Yes.
But yeah, another contemporary mad scientist movie this reminds me of. You're gonna think I'm crazy for saying this, is The
Oh
Human
yeah.
Centipede.
Oh
The
yeah.
isolation,
Yeah.
the pseudoscience, the science. It's not real.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a mad scientist movie structurally, but he's a doctor.
Yeah.
He's more of like a surgeon, which is more in line with um, the Human Centipede. But instead of
Yeah.
stitching people together, he's cutting people apart to stitch his daughter together, I guess.
Yeah. Well, that Human Centipede is a movie that you hear about it and you think it's going to be disgusting, but it
And
was
it
actually a
is.
much better movie. It
It
is, but
it's pretty
there was a
disgusting,
it,
especially the
it,
sequel. Good lord.
yeah, but I thought it worked. The original worked a lot better than I expected it to, just as a story.
The original
I
was
thought
a
it
lot
was
better than the sequel. The sequel just
yeah,
embraced
well,
everything that was schlocky about the first one.
uh, but just look at that. Look at that architecture there. Look at that.
Yeah.
That's
Very
impressive.
appropriate for the movie.
Yeah.
Also an unconventional
Yeah.
lead character. Generally, when you
Yes.
have these type of movies, you have like a Bela Lugosi or a Boris Karloff play, or like a Peter Lorre playing this type of character. And then you'd
Yeah.
have like the generic handsome lead actor and lead actress that are actually the people you're following, and they're just there to, like, be the lead for the poster or carry the heavy lifting for the acting. But you'd follow this B storyline with the love story, and they don't really
Yeah.
have that B storyline. I mean, we do get the boyfriend and the girl, but they don't actually have a scene together. And
No.
the boyfriend doesn't really play a huge role until you get to the third act. You don't really have to follow that B storyline of the love story subplot throughout the movie. He's pretty much the lead character.
Yeah, that's true. You kind of expect that boyfriend character to be more important, or you expect that relationship to be more important, but it's just, yeah, it's very minor
I
in a
think it
way.
is important, but it's not. It doesn't take up a lot of the screen time. It's important for the
Yes.
motivations, but screen time
Yeah.
wise, it doesn't really take up a lot.
Yes. Absolutely. And I think this is brilliant here too. We're seeing our character here, our we can't really call her our main character, but our maybe our titular
Damsel in
character,
distress, our
Edith Scobb,
protagonist.
the actress. And I love this. They introduce her. Her face is completely hidden from us, and it's like they're not revealing to us exactly
Kind of like what
what's
we do
going
with
on.
this podcast. Our faces are completely hidden.
That's right. Except we kind of blew it in the early days. We showed our faces so people
Yeah,
can find them, and we have our picture up too. So you
that's
know,
true. Yeah.
but I just love this. This is almost, it's like Phantom of the Opera or something where you don't know, and it's there. I feel there's two moments in this movie where they kind of reveal um, the face, or the mask and the face, and those are kind of powerful moments.
Yeah, and it becomes more powerful when you anticipate it by not seeing
Yeah,
it early on.
exactly. Yeah,
Less is more, as they say.
yeah.
No, but this is
I
handled
thought,
very well, especially since it's what the movie's centered around.
yeah, sure.
And you figure, like, it's kind of like insulting to her in a way, because this is the only thing I found, like, hilarious about this movie is how the mad scientist, the dad, handles this. It's like he comes in, he's like, "Ooh, didn't I tell you to put on your mask?" It's like, dude.
Yeah,
I mean, she's locked in her house. Like, at least pretend like she doesn't look hideous. He's like,
yeah,
oh, hey, come on. I told you, get used to wearing it. Come on, we're human. We can't stand to look at you. They're acting like she's Medusa or something. You figure in the house locked away, they could, like, stand how she looks, but I just found it hilarious.
yeah,
Like, he's scolding her for not wearing her mask. That's like telling your girlfriend,
yes,
hey, like, whoa, no makeup. I know you're in the house, but come on, like, come on. It's
yeah,
like...
yeah. You're right. It is kind of strange. You think if there's going to be other people around who might see her, then it makes sense. We got to have the mask on. But yeah, if it's just them, why are they so worried about it?
Yeah,
Um,
they're worried they got to
says you,
look at her.
yeah. Well, apparently, although I mean, here, she demonstrates that she can look at her, and she doesn't recoil in disgust or fear or anything.
There could be vomit she's holding back in her mouth right now, for all we know.
Well, maybe, but she's very good at not showing that, not betraying it. So, yeah, I don't know. I think it is interesting. You got to get used to it, they say, as if what, she's going to go out in public with the mask or something? Like,
Yeah. What's the
I
point
don't
of the
know.
mask? No one else sees her except them.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess, at this point, we're kind of putting together the fact that, he identified his daughter's body, and they had the funeral and they buried her, but actually she's still alive here. This is her. So she can't really go out in public unless she pretends she's someone else, I suppose.
Yeah. She's here in the flesh. Oh,
Yeah,
minus the flesh on the face.
yeah, yeah. And I think we're coming up to the first reveal, maybe, of the mask.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the flaw in the plan. Is like, there it is.
And it's a great mask, too.
Oh my god, yeah.
It
It's
just looks like a smooth face, which is
yeah,
extra creepy.
it is. You could
It
almost
almost looks
believe.
like what, like, an alien would look like on, like, the Twilight Zone or something.
Yeah, exactly.
You remember the Twilight Zone episode where they wear the masks, and then
No.
the grandfather dies, and
No.
then they take off the mask, but then their face looks like what the mask was.
Oh yeah.
Because they were so ugly inside, they just wanted to wait till he died to inherit his money. And they were the whole night they were wearing these masks until he passed away. And
Uh-huh.
then when he passed away, they took off the mask, but they still looked disfigured. And as each was taking off, they look, oh my god! It's like what? And they looked in the mirror. It's like my face. You don't remember that
Yeah.
episode? It's a classic.
No, I mean, I'm really overdue. I've got the whole series here, and I used to see it on TV whenever it would come on, late at night. I would watch it. I probably haven't seen all the episodes, but I have the whole series, and I just need to sit down and watch it. But I'm kind of,
Mhm.
for some reason, I'm saving it, and I don't know why.
Mhm. Yeah,
But yeah,
I guess the
especially,
bottom line to relate it back to this is that the mask looks so good that it can almost look in a low budget movie like just some kind of alien or something like that. It's a really good makeup effect.
yeah. And I mean, from the distance, or even like in a shot like this, you could almost think that's not a mask. That's her
Yeah,
face.
yeah,
You
just
can't
like a
really
really
tell.
smooth, creepy looking face.
Yeah. And apparently, they had three different masks. I think some were a little bulkier, and maybe they were easier to take on and off when they needed to do that in a scene.
Mm.
And then others were very thin, and I think they used makeup to sort of blend it in to her face a little.
Yeah, I
So,
would think the mask she's wearing now is not the one that they were holding up, you know.
no, no,
This more looks like a prosthetic, that's
yeah,
sculpted around her face.
yes. And apparently they did that. They made essentially a death mask of her, you know, and so it's definitely perfectly sculpted to her face.
Now, speaking of the lack of dialogue, and this feels like almost like a silent movie, this sequence with her, because obviously she can't facially emote emotions.
Yes,
So I think the actress, whether instructed to or not, is almost over exaggerating her body movement to express how she feels, which gives it not just a lack of dialogue, but just also her performance really makes it feel like you're watching a silent film, because she's
yeah,
really using her hands and walking around, using the space around her to express her emotions without
yes,
the benefit of us seeing her facial expressions.
that's right. And here's, perhaps where we're getting the relationship stuff, which it is kind
What
of
is she holding up to her ear there? Is that like a shoe or something?
that's, you would think so, but no, that is a telephone. That is an old fashioned.
Those were like really big cell phones in the 60s, huh?
Oh yeah, yeah, rotary dial. Um, but yeah, you kind of feel for her there as she calls her fiance but can't say anything. Um, but apparently that was something too when she was wearing one of the masks. It was so thin, if she actually spoke, the
She'd
entire
break
mask
it.
would move.
Oh.
No, it would move and it would look bad. So she needed to be silent with that particular mask on,
Mhm.
which I guess they wanted anyway. So that makes sense.
Mhm.
But this was like only maybe the second film that she was ever in. She was in Franju's first feature film, and then he cast her in this, and she had, done some theater, and she was sort of studying acting, so she was quite
Who
new.
are we talking about? The one with the mask or this actress we're
Yeah,
seeing here?
the one with the mask, Edith Scob. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Um, so she was kind of a brand new actress at this point.
Mhm. So these scenes kind of remind me of a lot of horror movies. Like I think of like what's that Scarlett Johansson movie Under the Skin,
Oh
where
yeah,
she goes
yeah,
out and gets different men in public and brings them back, and like Hellraiser.
yeah.
Just like there's a lot of movies like that. There's a I don't know if it's Countess Dracula, but there's a female Dracula movie by Hammer
Yes,
where like she's getting like different women versions or whatever to bathe
Yeah.
in their blood or whatever. So there's a lot of horror movies with this type of setup that I think is great, interesting.
Yes. And of course,
Going
we
out and
we
getting the prey.
yeah. And I mean, often it's reversed too, where it's like a man who's a psychopath of some sort. He somehow lures a woman back to his place, and you know she's going to die there. But
They go against the
yeah,
grain and they get the,
oh
as you
yeah,
put it, the most beautiful woman in the world
in the
to
world,
portray
yeah,
them. Yeah.
Mussolini's personal, most beautiful woman in the world. Yes. And yeah, it's creepy because you know, she's got some
Here's
bad
that rear
ideas.
projection again. Pisses me off.
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, you can't help but feel
And
bad
this
for.
god awful music. Oh god. It's like this should be creepy. She's going to
Yeah,
like this isolated castle and they're gonna like cut her up. And we get the clown music. God.
I, I guess he must be going for that. I don't know what to call it. It's sort of a.
Looney Tunes?
Well, I was going to say it's like an ironic thing or something. You know, the music's happy, but it's not going to be a happy thing that happens here.
You don't need irony, man. You just need to set the tone.
Yeah,
Get out the way, let the actors do their thing. Let the atmosphere, the shot composition, the locations stand out.
yeah, yeah. It wouldn't have been my choice, but it is what it is, I guess.
It looks like all rainy too. It looks
It
really
does.
nice.
Yeah. I guess this is kind of what you need in a movie like this is you need the sympathetic victim that you know is headed for a bad time here. So you can kind of root for them to maybe make it out of this alive. But we still don't fully understand what's going to happen here. We just know that they dumped a body.
Well, I do. You see, I've seen the movie already, so I kind of know what's going to happen here.
Yes, well, I'm speaking for the people who haven't seen the movie.
Speak for
But
yourself. Speak for
yes,
yourself.
I, of course, know. I know what's going to happen. But
You soothsayer, you.
yes,
Another beautiful shot here.
yes,
Here we have I guess you kind of fill in the blanks as to what she's thinking.
yes,
You know, it's like we know entering that house is her doom. She
yes,
doesn't technically know that, but she does have hesitation.
yes,
You could tell she feels isolated. She's looking around. Wait a minute, there's no one here. And I'm
yeah,
going into that creepy place, you know? So
yeah. And
there's a
she
sense
hears
of doom.
hears a lot of dogs as well.
And obviously that nice wide shot where we see our nutty professor or mad scientist.
Yes,
Are you foreshadowing when you say those dogs?
those dogs. Well, I'm just saying that she could hear the dogs barking there, and it is
I'm
kind of
saying maybe
scary.
you're foreshadowing that those
Uh,
dogs are gonna
I
come back
well,
later, like
yeah.
Chekhov's gun.
I'm not sure if I'm doing it, but maybe Franju is doing that. You know, I think he's definitely telling
Enough
us
with the beef dip, okay? Let's focus on the movie. I know you're hungry.
there are dogs around here.
You know what
Yes,
they say? Never have a dog bark unless he's gonna bite.
that's true. Yes. Whatever you do, don't kill a dog. Audiences don't like that.
No, they don't. Kill the baby, not the dog.
You know, Franju, he actually studied to become a set designer, and he created
Mm.
backdrops for music halls like the Casino de Paris and the Folies Bergère. So he actually knows set design and composition, and so it makes sense that he's very good at, creating these beautiful shots in the space that he's in.
Mm.
Just again, looking at the interior of this place, I'm always fascinated.
Yeah. And you also have to think like it's the 60s, you know? So were it not this Gothic design, it'd be looking like a very dated, you know, pre-hippie, had with like, you know, lava lamps and thick carpeting.
Yeah,
So
that's true. I guess
the
in
Gothic nature makes it feel timeless.
yeah, yeah, you're right. Like a way of making something feel timeless is to kind of set it in the past, or at least in a location that's very old. Yeah, that's a good point. And here we have the creepy mask descending the shadowy stairs. It's like a vampire or something.
Is that a coat or like a cape? Or
Yeah, it looks like
I mean, it does it enhance the vampire look she has by wearing it with the collar up. So
true. Yes. I'm not sure. Is it like a house coat or something that you wear? Is she dressed or is she in her pajamas? I don't know. That's a good question.
you're the one who called her a vampire. You should know, right?
Well, I mean, I was just getting the feeling, but yeah, you make a good point that what she's wearing is adding to that effect.
Yeah.
And of course, this poor girl, her worst fears have come true. Something bad is happening.
What do you mean her worst fears to come true? She's not on a date with you. Can't be that bad.
Well, we don't know if she fears that. I mean, she may not know that I exist, so
Oh, it's true.
that may not be something she's worried about. But
Yeah.
you know, it's interesting they chloroform her because they're sort of trying to put on this front and they're saying all these things, but then they just chloroform her. So it's
What
like
was the point?
they could have done that from the start. As soon as she
Could have
walked
done that
in.
in the car right there.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
All that ruse for no reason.
Yeah. Exactly.
I think the ruse was for our benefit, maybe, as the audience.
Yeah, maybe because we don't fully know. I mean, we know, but the audience who hasn't seen it yet may not know for sure that
Yeah.
this is going to be bad.
You make a good point. Like maybe if they spiked her drink or something, that would have made more sense because like get there, make her drink it. But if you're just
Yeah.
gonna grab her from behind and chloroform her, like,
Yeah.
it's not exactly like a cunning plan.
No.
So once we lure her here, we'll tell her this story. She'll believe this, and when she believes that, then we'll get her here, and then we'll just chloroform her.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. If we left out all the other stuff and we just chloroformed her, wouldn't that work just as well?
Yeah. That would have been easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, these wider shots with her are the creepiest ones, you know?
Oh yeah.
Where
Yeah.
it's like it's too far to tell it's a mask, but it's just close enough to look like there's like a uh what's that valley thing called? The uncanny valley
Oh
type look,
yes. Yeah.
you know?
The uncanny valley. Yes. Yeah. I just love these shots of her creeping around, and you don't really know like what is she thinking. You can't see her expression.
Well, that's what I'm saying. She
She's
emotes a lot physically in
yes. Yeah.
her the way she moves her bodies and her limbs around. It
Yeah.
really expresses how she feels. And again,
Yeah.
it feels very much like a silent movie because anytime she's on screen, you have these long sequences of just no dialogue.
Yes. Yes. And interestingly, Franju, back in the early days, he actually started a sort of a cinema club, I guess you might call it, where they would show silent films from their own collections. So that was kind of his beginning in a way with film. So he was obviously into the silent films.
Mm-hmm.
And then he also founded the Cinémathèque Française in 1936, which is, of course, where they would show art house films. So he's definitely a guy who understands the silent cinema.
There goes Chekhov's dog.
Oh yeah, here we are.
You know what also helps this movie, this scene, feel even more creepy? And then
No,
that god awful score.
yeah, I guess part of what I was thinking is that we don't know, is this character Christiane, I think her name is she like on board with whatever is going on here? Does she fully know what's going on here? Or she's creeping around and kind of spying as if she may not fully understand.
Yeah,
And
I wish they would have delved into her character a little bit more, but she kind of comes off as someone with the mind of a child, even
yeah,
though she's an adult. And I don't know if that's the acting choice of the actress or the direction of the director, or if it's the character itself, but
yeah,
she does come off a little simple-minded for someone who's clearly an adult.
yeah,
So,
yeah. She is a bit of a mystery. She's a mysterious figure.
yeah.
And I
But
think
she
she
doesn't
did
seem
say,
to have any agency to her to herself at all.
yeah. And I think she said something early on about wishing she had died in the car crash.
Yeah, but then she sounds just like a little petulant child or something. I wish I
Yeah.
wasn't born at all. Then everything be better. And she also says I think she wish she was blind. And I inside my space car. I just wish I was blind. I couldn't see anything. You sound a little whiny.
But it makes me wonder, is she on board with whatever's going on here? And now that she sees this, when here we have the mask coming off. So that's one of the three masks there. Um, so she's now not wearing a mask, but we still haven't seen her.
This is
We have,
one of the two of there's only like two creepy really creep well there's like three creepy scenes in this movie. This is one of the three for me.
yeah, for sure.
And
This
it's
is the,
really well done.
yeah, it is. This is again, oh yeah, look at that. This is a bit like the Phantom of the Opera thing again, revealing the face. We're finally seeing it for the first
We
time.
get to react, then the character gets to react. I love
Yeah,
even after we see it, it's still a little blurry, you know?
yeah, oh yeah, totally. Yeah, I think it's a great moment.
We have some pseudoscience BS going on here now.
Yes, you need some pseudoscience BS.
Hey, you know what? Like decades later, they did Face Off that wasn't any with all
Yes.
all that technology, it wasn't any more sophisticated than yeah, we're just gonna cut his face off.
Yeah. Well, yeah, this movie really, I think, inspired a lot of other movies, and that might be one of them. John Woo's Face Off.
Yeah, I think the in Batman 89, who
Yes.
was that model that was Mick Jagger's wife? That was
Oh,
Jack Nicholson who played the Joker, his girlfriend in that movie. And
Jerry
something
Hall?
Hall, Jerry Hall, Jerry
Jerry
Hall.
Hall, yeah.
Yeah, I think Jerry Hall's character was somewhat based on this as well, because she
Yeah.
had that mask that she would wear. When she took that mask off, people screamed.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course, the European filmmaker Jess Franco has made two movies that kind of follow this one. One of them in 1962, so pretty shortly after this, The Awful Dr. Orloff, which actually spawned a whole series of Dr. Orloff films. Um, and then in 1988, he did one called Faceless, which is pretty much kind of a remake of this, except it's a lot more depraved, a lot more sex and nudity and violence. But this scene here has got to be one of the most disturbing moments.
Yeah, so
Just
this
watch.
scene interesting for me. It's and this is gonna the second really shocking scene is coming up now. For
Yeah,
me, this scene starts off as like borderline okay. This part here, where it's just like, yeah, it's decent effects, but it clearly looks fake. And it kind of ends a little fake too. But there's a middle portion of this scene that's just like really effing creepy. And
yeah,
supposedly a bunch of people fainted in the theater.
yeah,
But I don't know about that. That's kind of like with
yeah.
the people passing out when they saw The Exorcist, and of course your favorite film in the whole world, where like
Paranormal Activity.
where people were like screaming in the
Yeah.
theaters. I mean, after Paranormal Activity, I don't believe any of these stories to be true at all. I believe 100% it's all marketing.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to know, but I
Paranormal
must say,
Activity permanently scarred me from believing any of these old wives' tales.
yeah. Well, I must say, I mean, I've seen this movie before, and watching it again now, I still found this scene a little bit disturbing. You know, there's just something about it.
Absolutely.
This beautiful woman, and they're cutting into her face. It's, oh God, you know, this is just what a horrible idea this is.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm no doctor, but you know, I just think this isn't going to work. You know, it's just my first thought, right? It's like,
You think?
you know, you know, I don't know a lot, but I know when it comes to transplants, you know, you got a lot of problems with
How
rejection and stuff
hilarious
like
would
that.
this movie have been is after this scene, we cut to the daughter and he literally just like pasted the face on
Yeah.
her face.
Yeah.
And it just looked as bad as you imagine it looking in real life.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's
That would be the most hilarious thing ever.
yeah. Oh man. Yeah.
It's
But you
just like,
know,
how do I look? And like the face is bleeding and falling off.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, here's where it starts getting really effing creepy, man. When I
Yeah.
saw this for the first time, I'm like, when I saw the face jiggling as he was
Yeah.
like putting on the clamps, I'm like, oh man,
Yeah.
that's really good special effects. Like it's getting
Yeah.
creepy.
Oh yeah. But you know, I found myself thinking too, like, wouldn't you have to like measure and make sure that the face is the right size and it's going to fit exactly right over
Stop
the
thinking.
other?
Stop
Yeah,
thinking.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you'd think you'd
It's like,
have to.
why do they need to be beautiful? If you just
Yeah,
it's just skin basically. If she was
yeah,
like 300 pounds, how would that affect her face?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But I mean, just randomly picking a victim because she's available, like, what are the odds it's going to be a perfect match? You know, you think
Yeah.
they need
Well,
to
they're
do
somewhat
something?
randomly picking, but they're picking attractive women. So at
Sure.
first, when I thought they were
Yeah,
picking attractive women, there was something to like. I thought what I initially thought was, oh, that actress is now going to play the daughter
yeah,
because her face is going to look exactly like her face. So they're just going to
yeah,
switch actresses. But when they didn't do that, I'm like, what's the fucking point? It's just skin you're looking for. Just cut off
yeah,
her ass cheek
yeah,
skin
yeah.
and put it, if it's just skin you
Well,
need.
yeah. True, true. Yeah, but
Isn't that what they do for plastic surgery? Like they'll pull fat from parts of your
yeah,
body to plump up your cheeks and skin from other
yeah.
parts. Oh, here it is. Oh,
There we
yeah.
go. Oh
This
yeah.
is this is this
Oh yeah.
freaked me out when I first saw it. I was
Yeah.
like, wow.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah.
Yeah. And they faded off at the right time. Because if
Yes,
they
they
held
did.
that shot too long, it would have looked pretty fake.
Yes. Yeah.
That whole scene was just handled really well. And from an
Yeah.
editing standpoint, and obviously special effects wise, it's going to look dated, but for the time, I'm sure it was pretty good.
Yeah. And of course, that is like a huge, huge moment because that's where the audience finally fully understands what's going on here. And now everything kind of makes sense. And it's pretty disturbing.
Yeah, yeah. That's the second of the three disturbing scenes I found in this movie. There's
Yeah.
one coming up towards the end as well that's pretty disturbing.
Yeah. And the stuff with the dogs, like, I don't know, I found it a little bit unclear. Like, he's obviously doing something with these dogs. But I don't know.
I
How
think this
clear
is
did you?
based on a book though, so maybe there's more backs.
Yes.
Maybe it's like Dune. You need to read the book to
Yeah.
get everything.
It is based on a book. He actually hired a couple of writers to work on the script, and Pierre Boileau and Thomas Nassajac, who actually had written a bunch of novels together. But two of their novels were turned into famous movies. One was Les Diaboliques, 1955, the really great French suspense film,
Love that
and
movie.
Vertigo, 1958, directed by Alfred Hitchcock. So they wrote those books. They didn't write the movies.
Vertigo is one of
Yeah,
the weirdest movies to be considered one of the best of all time.
yeah, kind
It's
of
like it's
is.
such a
Yeah,
random movie. It's like, really?
yeah,
I mean, it's good, but that we're gonna put that as one
yeah,
of the greatest movies ever made?
Yeah,
It's probably
I
like
know.
eighth on like Hitchcock's best films, and we're just gonna
Yeah.
randomly say that's one of the greatest movies ever made.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wasn't even sure if I liked it the first time I saw it, but then I watched it again and I did appreciate it more. But yeah, I was shocked when people talked about Vertigo being, I think it actually officially dethroned Citizen Kane on some list,
That
didn't it?
is just a shameful thing. Like, I mean, even if you think Vertigo is more entertaining than Citizen Kane, Citizen Kane
Yeah,
is so much more historically important than like almost any film ever made. If you're
yeah,
gonna dethrone it, Vertigo is the movie you're gonna pick, you
yeah,
know, with like a
yeah,
80-year-old James Stewart, like awkwardly romancing like a woman like a third of his age, and like I don't know,
yeah,
it's a weird
yeah,
movie too. It's a really good movie. I'm not knocking the movie,
yeah,
but it's just a
yeah,
weird film to be considered the greatest film ever made.
yeah.
So
And
random.
I mean, for me, I actually love Rear Window in terms of Hitchcock. I like that one better than Vertigo, but there are people who
There's The
love,
Birds,
love.
there's Psycho, there's so many
Yeah, oh
great
yeah,
movies he made.
for sure, for sure. But yeah, it's surprising these two guys, they wrote the novels, but not the movies. And then here, they didn't write the novel, but they wrote the movie. And it's totally in their wheelhouse. I mean, this feels like it could have been one of their novels, but it's it's not.
Mm.
And now we have our victim who's kind of in a mask, in a bit of a reversal here.
Yeah. I
Instead of
honestly thought they would have just swapped actresses.
yeah, I
You
did
know,
wonder that. I did wonder that too. Yeah, but
and now this would be the one with the scar, and the other one would be the one with the face, and they would just swap them.
yeah,
And I thought this character would have been around for a while. They just swap them and keep that dynamic going of like, now you're the one without a face.
yeah. But I guess that was something John Woo perfected in 1997 was switching
It took a
actors.
while. It took a few decades.
Yeah,
Maybe
but of
I should have
course,
said I just saw Face Off and then I watched this. That's what I thought.
uh-huh. Yeah,
I didn't, but I thought they would switch actors.
yeah. But yeah, there's
Even the
certainly been.
bandaging make her look creepy, you know?
Oh yeah, totally. Now she's eyes without a face. This woman.
I already said that joke.
Did you?
Yes.
Ah,
And I paused for you to laugh and you just ignored me. You
I must
powered
have.
through it just to say your own joke.
Oh, well, I
I
must have
said I
been.
thought they'd swap places and now she'd be
Yes,
the one with eyes
yes.
without a face.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, I was distracted in that moment.
She's doing the typical horror movie trope where, oh, not the front door, let me go upstairs. You know, it's
Yeah,
like front door.
exactly.
Mhm.
And I must admit, I'm not
And
fully.
it would have made a more interesting chase scene too, because it's not like if she left the front door she could escape. She'd be running into the
Oh,
jungle, which would have made a nice chase scene.
yeah. And I
Well,
wondered if
not the
they were.
jungle, but the forest, I should say.
Yes. I wondered if they were going to release the hounds, as they say, if
Mm.
the dogs were going to chase her down outside. But I
I
must.
swear to God that I knew exactly what was going to happen here. We're going to hear her scream, and we did hear her scream, but I
Yeah.
thought that she would see the other girl with her face, be
Uh
like,
huh.
aha, you have my face. And when I heard
Yeah.
the scream, I'm like, that's what happened. But
Yeah.
this is what happened instead.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
if
now,
I had $1 million to bet, I would have confidently bet that $1 million that
yeah.
she was going to scream. And as she did scream, I'm like, it can only be one thing. She
Yeah.
saw the other girl with her face and she was like, oh my God, you have my face. Like,
Yeah.
what do I have? You know?
Yeah.
But I mean, this is a good reveal as well, but I was just dead wrong.
Yeah. I must admit, I was confused as to what happened there. Like, did she try to escape somehow out the window and
I think it's
fell?
implied that she tried to escape and fell, you know.
Yeah. Or did she jump? Like, she's so horrified by the situation, she
But she
killed
didn't see her
herself.
face. I mean, if she
No.
pulled off the bandages, then you would say
Yeah.
maybe she jumped.
Yeah. No, I think you're right that she must have tried to escape. But now we've got another body to dispose of.
You
which
know,
they
this
do
is
in.
how they actually do it at cemeteries.
Oh
So he's
yes,
gonna put that body on top of the other, but that's what they actually do at cemeteries.
yeah,
Because I mean, it can only be so big, so they just put bodies on top of each other.
yeah,
I mean, assuming the world is going to be around for like a while, I mean, bodies are going to really start piling up at some point. You
oh
know,
yeah,
another couple, another like few thousand years, it's going to be like, man,
yeah,
we got billions of bodies buried everywhere. What are we going to do,
yeah. Well,
with all these cemeteries?
I think
Because the
it's going to
world isn't
be
getting any bigger, but the
no,
population keeps getting bigger and people keep dying, obviously.
yeah, and there's all this land that's getting wasted essentially on cemeteries.
Yeah. Mhm.
I mean, some are right in the city, which is not a good use of the land. You want to build up the city, but oh, we've got this huge graveyard here. So a lot of them have moved out to the outskirts and into the country, but it's still using up land that could be
Someone should
farmland
make
or,
a horror movie about this called The Poltergeist.
oh, yes. Now, this is interesting here. They're in the graveyard at night, deserted, but then there's this plane going
I
overhead.
don't get that. Do you understand
Yeah.
that?
Well,
Is
not
she thinking about
entirely.
escaping or something? Like
Well, I don't know. I wondered if it was, oh no, they're going to see us, but that doesn't quite make
that
sense
doesn't
because
make any sense at all. That makes
even
like
even if you could
zero
look out of the
sense.
plane and see them, by the time you land and phone the
But
authorities,
how would they see them? It's impossible.
no, they
They're in a
they wouldn't.
plane.
So I
The
wondered if it was,
cemetery probably looks like a dot to them, much
yeah,
as
yeah,
someone in the cemetery.
yeah, yeah, and she doesn't move. She doesn't duck inside to avoid being
Yeah.
seen.
I
But
think they were trying to say something, but even when I first
yeah,
saw this, I'm like, wait a minute, what are they trying to say here exactly? The only
yeah,
thing I can think of is like she's thinking, oh, I wish I could fly away and escape like this crazy
yeah,
psycho.
maybe.
But none of
I
her
wondered.
actions after this reflect her wanting to escape, though.
No, I did wonder if it was something to do with here we are in this very Gothic cemetery, and this feels like, this could be the 1800s. We're burying a body, it could be a Frankenstein movie, but oh, look, there's an airplane going overhead. So it's the modern world sort of
The only
colliding
thing
with
I can
this.
think of from a filmmaking standpoint, oh shit, we need a cutaway. I was just kidding. I mean,
Yeah,
I've fell into that situation a million times, but I'm a zero budget filmmaker. It's like, oh
yeah,
man, oh man, that's some bad continuity. How do we get out of this mess? All right, just some random cutaway. By the time you cut back, you forgot it, like the actress is wearing a different color shirt, something like
yeah,
that. So
yeah, yeah. I suspect he had something in mind, but yeah, it was a little bit elusive to me.
I was a bit confused with this scene. I thought they were gonna like do some kind of thing where he was gonna creep on the girl. Either it was gonna be some subplot where like he acts her out or something,
Yeah,
or they were gonna get a little creepy with her, but it's just kind of weird.
yeah.
And it, I mean, how do I bring this up in a YouTube setting? There is a series of adult-oriented entertainment, quote unquote, films that have a theme of shoplifters saying, what can I do to get out of this? And a
Mm.
cop-like figure saying, well, and this scene had that type of feel to it.
Yeah, yeah.
She's like,
I
oh, I
could,
shoplift, my parents are gonna kill me. Is there any way out of this? It's like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
well,
Yes, I know what you mean. Um, Here we have the infamous dinner scene.
is this an infamous scene?
Well, maybe, maybe not. But it's an interesting scene. This is where we get I guess we could call this the third reveal now. Here we have her face,
She is beautiful.
and it's a real face, yeah. But there's something that doesn't feel completely happy here. Something isn't quite right.
Yeah, she realized she can't just go back to her life.
Yeah. which is kind of what I was trying to say before, that they've declared her dead essentially. So they can't just say, oh, miraculously she's still alive. But I guess she has someone else's face now, so maybe they needed to kill her, but now they've got to give her a new identity.
Mm. Yeah, that's why I honestly, it threw me for a curveball when she didn't have the other woman's face.
Yeah,
Then it made me think like, why does she have to be pretty? Why do you have to be that particular? If she's
yeah,
just gonna look like herself and it's just skin, why did it have to even be a face?
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a good question. Yeah,
And I mean, if I were him, I'd get a DNA test because I think Mama Mad Scientist might have been, messing around on the side because they
yeah,
look nothing alike.
yeah. You could be right. Yeah, that's true.
And they don't really delve into the relationship. I thought at some point they would have, between the most beautiful woman in the world here and our mad scientist.
Yeah, I did too.
Even if they hinted at something, I thought maybe what it would have been is like maybe like for her, right? For the daughter, it's because she got into an accident and her face was all messed up. What I was thinking was maybe that woman, the most beautiful woman in the world, as you call her,
Yes.
was ugly and her
Yeah.
face was fine, but he just made her look pretty. So now she's in debt to him,
Yeah.
kind of like that.
Maybe.
But
Yeah.
it could be anything because, I mean, unless you read the book, you don't
Yeah.
really know.
Yeah. That's true.
But something there would have been like, been nice.
Yeah, I did expect to learn a little more about their relationship. I must agree with you.
Yeah.
And then here we get a hint here. We can tell that something is not quite right here.
And it's all his performance because she looks
Yeah.
stunning, you know.
Oh yeah.
Nothing's wrong
Totally.
with her.
Yeah. Totally.
Now I keep joking about her look. She is very pretty, but I'm just not a big fan of the haircut.
Yeah.
She's got like a guy's haircut. It's just not flattering on her.
Yeah.
To have that little hair in your head, maybe she was like 15 pounds skinnier. So, but like, because she's not big, but she's a little curvy to have that little hair in her head. It just makes
Yeah.
her face look a little bit more puffier than it is.
Yeah. Well, I'm a fan of hair. I like long hair, like
Mhm.
big hair.
Yeah.
Not a big fan of the really short haircut myself. Uh oh.
So I thought this was an interesting way to do the passage of time. And
Yeah.
first I was like, is this in his mind? And we're gonna go back and it's gonna be real time. He's gonna go back to the dinner table. But I'm like, are
Yeah.
they really jumping that far ahead of time? Because if they're jumping that far ahead, then there's no real continuity with anything that happened before. Because if we're going months into the future, then we're not really picking up where we left off. So any
Yeah.
momentum the movie had is gone because you're
Yeah.
you're months later. It's like,
Yeah.
but when you think about it, it's not like there was really an investigation or anything going on. So I guess there
No.
was no momentum to lose. But it's kind of
Yeah.
weird. Like, all right, here we are months into the future. It's like, but wait a minute, what about, and what about, but there's nothing to keep track of, really.
Yeah. Yeah. And here we are returning to the mask. You knew it had to happen. And
You could
here,
feel for her too. She
yeah,
finally got out.
Yeah.
Here I thought he was like, fuck it, I'll just get a dog skin and put it on her
Yeah,
face.
yeah, yeah. Well, he's clearly doing something with the dogs here. It's like
Yeah.
experimenting on them or something. It's not
Uh,
completely clear,
no,
but
it's not. It's not.
um,
I thought, I mean, based on the end, you think he'd be torturing them, but you don't really get the sense that he's torturing them.
no,
It's not like the island of Dr. Moreau, where it's just like, all right, you torture, and now you're gonna get yours when they all escape, you know?
yeah, this was actually something when they.
This is really creepy
Oh
here
yeah,
because you don't
yeah,
really see where the mask ends and her skin starts. So it just
yes,
completely looks just like her face at this point,
it
except by the
does.
eyes, but the
Yeah,
transition from the neck to the mask is seamless here.
yeah. Here we get the pathos again of the.
Here we have our charismatic, not wooden at all, not boring and cookie cutter at all. Our charismatic, oozing with charisma lead actor here.
Yes,
Why do horror movies have the worst leading actors and actresses as far as like the protagonists go? They're always the worst.
I
The
guess
bad
they're like.
guys are always the ones that are more interesting in horror
Yeah,
movies.
yeah. Well, that's the thing. We're more interested in the monster, the bad guys. The lovers aren't that interesting.
I mean, I understand in early horror movies, like they're all considered B movies. So studios would kind of like let the inexperienced or the people they want to develop, they put them in the horror movies. They wouldn't put like Gary Cooper and Cary Grant in the horror movies. They put well let's work on this guy and see if he has potential. We'll put him in this
Yeah,
horror movie with Lugosi. We'll put Lugosi top billing and we'll see what this guy can do. So the older horror movies you can understand, but as you get like further into like 50s, 60s, and even to contemporary times, there's still a lot of really bad actors in horror movies. You're just like, oh, why can't I get an A-level actor in a horror movie, you know? It
yeah,
doesn't really happen too often. I mean, you have like and when they do, it's great because like The Shining, great,
yeah,
one of my favorite movies of all time. You have
yeah,
like uh The Exorcist, you got Silence of the Lambs. When they put A-level actors in these horror movies, it really elevates it, you know?
yeah, yeah, for sure. So at the time,
So I
there
can
weren't a
actually
lot.
translate this because I know I don't speak French, but I gave it. No, you have to believe me. I have some charisma. It's in my shoe. I left it in my other shoe at home. I'm oozing with charisma. I can totally be it. Okay, look at me now. I'm mad. Okay, now I'm happy. Yeah, yeah, okay. Now I'm sad. Okay, I'm like a sad clown now. That's pretty much it, right? That's pretty much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the subtext.
But he doesn't change his expression like once in the movie. I mean, he opens his eyes and like he closes his eyes, but like his facial expressions are just like the same.
Yeah. Well, he's depressed because his fiance has disappeared and is dead, as far as he knows, I guess. Um, yeah, the French at the time, uh, there weren't a lot of horror films going on in France, and this was the first sort of attempt. And the producer cautioned Franju not to include some of the things that were in the book, including too much blood, which would upset the French censors, and don't torture the animals because that will upset the English censors,
Yeah. So
and
maybe he
leave out.
was supposed to be torturing the dogs.
I think so. I think they've left that out.
Mm.
And they also said leave out mad scientist characters, which would upset the German censors. So
Mm.
these were all things in the novel. So I think part of what they did here is that they tried to make this mad doctor to be much more human and sympathetic in a way. Like he is fairly a sympathetic character, even though he's doing these terrible things.
Mhm. I just wish they would have figured out a creative reason for there to be something between him and the dogs that would make the end to make more sense.
Yeah.
The blood thing I don't mind because I think the movie works as it is right now. I think it works fine.
Yes.
As far as the mad scientist stuff, I think that works fine too. I mean,
Yeah.
how far could you go with it? The further you go with the mad scientist, the more comical it will be instead of interesting, you know?
Yeah.
Because I mean, you don't have the budget to make him do like anything like really weird, and the weirder stuff he does, the more like suspension of disbelief you're gonna have, you know?
Yeah.
I don't think those censorship things hurt it too much.
No. What's interesting though, when they did release it in the US 2 years later, they edited it and they took out some of that face removing scene, but they also cut out some of the stuff that made the doctor more human, like when he's taking care of a small child at the clinic. It's kind of an interesting scene because it has nothing to do with the rest of the story, but it shows him as this caring doctor. And that was a problem, I guess, for the censors. They didn't like that.
So we're going to start to transition here to the third act, and I mean, I said nothing but well, I've made some critiques about the film, but they're minor critiques. This is probably my, aside from the music, my biggest critique is this transition to the third act. It's underwhelming. It's underwhelming. Maybe it's all the cuts, but the actor that is now going to play a more prominent role with the boyfriend,
Yes.
he's not very good. And maybe if it was a better performer in that role, he would have brought maybe some emotion that would make me invest in his character and that arc of, the lovers torn apart thing. But I just don't care about his character. And I just don't care about this whole, subplot that's going to now take over, where it's going to be this cunning plan to trick them. It's unearned. They didn't figure
Yeah.
anything out. There wasn't like any like throughout the film they're piecing things together like Seven or something, or like some kind of like mystery. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
well, if this happens, this means that. It's just out of the blue, this character that we didn't even think was going to be significant, suddenly is a prominent main character in the third act. Suddenly has a hunch. That's all. Oh, I have a hunch, and
Yeah.
that hunch is going to be what ultimately is the catalyst for everything we're going to see right now. It's unearned, it's half baked, and not a big fan of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, interestingly, the actor Francois Guerin, I'm not sure how to pronounce. Um, he didn't do very much. He only has 30 some credits.
Oh
Um,
shoot, hang on, let me pick my jaw off the ground because I was so shocked that he didn't do much after this.
yeah, I mean, he didn't have a great career. There's not much known about him. The biographical
We know
information
that he
available.
sucks.
Um,
That's one thing.
well, I mean, he died at age 75 of undisclosed causes.
Boredom.
So,
he
there's
was
not that
he,
much.
he bored himself to death.
Yeah, we just don't know. He did not go on to a stellar career. So,
No.
you might be right that he was not super brilliant. Maybe he
Now,
just never
obviously,
got
I'm
the
joking.
right
I'm
part.
not really. I don't have anything against this actor, but
No.
as far as in the context of the movie, um, the writing for him and his performance were they stood out as being, not good.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it was really just that one sort of coincidence, you could even call it, that somebody mentions the choker that the woman was wearing, and he kind of recognizes that, and that's it. That's all they've got. Um, but yeah, it
It's
strikes me as a
nothing. That's
yeah,
like, how do you get cops? Even the Keystone cops would be like, "Oh, she has a choker. Oh, boys, let's get on the horn. She's got a choker." It's like,
yes,
like
yeah. I mean, there maybe could have been some scenes with him investigating and finding suspicious things while he's working in the clinic. He's right there. He can kind of see things,
See
but I,
behavior, maybe see like mud
yeah,
on the shoes or
yeah,
mysterious habits. He's always leaving at a certain time. He's looking
yeah,
into the castle. He's seeing him like walk around weird.
hmm
Something.
yeah, seeing him torture dogs, you know, but
Anything.
yeah, but I do find it almost funny that the police are like, well, you're going to go down for shoplifting, or you could risk your life.
When they said or, it
Yeah,
then brought me back to the more contemporary shoplifting
yeah,
movies I've seen recently. It's like,
yeah,
well, you could go down for life, or you know.
yeah. But I mean, in light of what winds up happening here, you have to think that
And another,
shoplifting charge.
not to harp on the silliness.
Yeah,
I'll let you finish your thought in a second.
yeah,
Oh, well, we'll just need you to, to dye your hair blonde. Again, what does her
yeah,
being blonde have to do with tearing her face off? Like, if she
yeah,
was brunette, they wouldn't tear. What does her hair have to do with anything? His daughter
yeah.
isn't bald. And again,
No,
her looking like the daughter has nothing to do with what he's doing.
yeah. I mean, it seems to be the suggestion that they're trying to find someone who's a good match, and that's the way that they're kind of doing it. Is her eyes, her hair, the way she looks. But I think really they should be looking at her blood type, and her facial structure. They should be looking at more scientific things to sort of figure out,
Especially
is this a
since he said the last one was rejected, by our
yeah,
body. Like, you're right.
yeah, exactly. And I mean, he's got a clinic where he has patients, so he should just be doing blood tests and measuring people. And oh my God, out of 100 people, I found one who maybe
All of the victims
could.
should have been from the clinic. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, but instead it's just like, oh,
And he
there's
could
a
have still
woman.
had the sidekick, but she could have been a nurse.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Um, yeah, you need a large pool of possible donors to kind of find one that is going to be a perfect fit. And they just seem to be, randomly finding people out on the street who have the right hair color and eyes or whatever.
Yeah. And
So
if they
yeah,
would have kept it in a hospital, that would have made the perfect transition for him to see what was going on.
yeah, and that would be another link too. That the missing women were all patients here at one time. So that makes this a more suspicious character or more suspicious place. But yeah, they kind of
Yeah.
stumble into this.
Yeah. I mean, the highlights of this film is definitely the uniqueness of it, the execution of certain scenes and sequences, the
Mhm.
location, the design, costume design, the makeup design, shot composition, cinematography. Those are
Yeah,
definitely the strengths. The script, some
yeah,
of the actors, I guess you
yeah,
can say some of the casting, even. Um, the score were definitely some of the more underwhelming parts of the film.
yeah. Um, yeah, I think Pierre Brasseur, who plays the doctor here, he's actually quite good,
Mhm.
and he
Yes, he
has
is. Yeah,
he
yeah,
had a long career. He did a lot of stuff,
yeah.
and deservedly so. And he actually came from a whole family of actors. It was kind of like the family business. His
Mhm.
grandfather, both of his parents. So he really comes to it um, in a legitimate way.
All the bad
Um,
guys are good. All the good guys kind of
yeah,
suck. The cops are forgettable, and the boyfriend is awful.
yeah. Um, and we're gonna kind of see it playing out here, but I
This
just can't
is
believe.
so creepy. This is
Yes.
just so creepy.
Oh yes.
I
Like
mean,
this is.
forget about the fact that like they're gonna kidnap her. If they didn't
Yeah.
kidnap her, somebody was gonna kidnap her.
Yeah.
Like, look
Yeah.
at where
Right. That's right.
she's like
Yeah.
begging to be kidnapped.
Yeah. But I mean, what like the police have had her go in there undercover. Are they not watching? Are they not paying attention? Like, oh, people have been disappearing, but eh, we'll just go home. And
Yeah, they
I
they
mean,
set her up there. They made her, you know, dye her hair. They made her pretend
yeah,
she was going crazy. What if they would have lobotomized her? They're doing all that
well,
like
yeah,
testing and stuff.
yeah,
You know?
exactly. Like That where shouldn't they be waiting to rush in as soon as something bad happens? But
And here goes our detective. Oh, what,
yeah,
she disappeared? You mean
yeah,
the person we planted in there that we're completely responsible for? That we
yeah.
tricked into going there with some trumped up shoplifting charges? She disappeared? Ah,
That's
don't worry
right.
about it. Maybe she's just late for home.
Yeah. Oh no, and here we go again. Having seen the first scene,
Yeah.
this is pretty distressing. This poor girl, and this is where I have to think she would be thinking, those shoplifting charters are looking pretty good now. This I should have taken the shoplifting instead of this.
What
This is
did
not.
the movie say what she shoplifted? I think
I
I just
don't.
remember them saying she shoplifted.
Yeah, I don't know if they did. I don't recall.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't imagine it would have been much more than a slap on the wrist, really. But
If the movie had a sense of humor, there would have been like a mirror or like dog
yeah,
food or like
yeah,
something to like come
yes,
full circle back to these weirdos here.
yeah,
Or like hair dye. It's
yeah,
like, remember that hair dye you stole? Well, we have an idea. It's like something like that.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah,
the other movies I've seen, generally it's jewelry and it's hidden in certain orifices that unfortunately, there's a removal of clothing that needs to be done to find out
yes,
where their shoplifting items are.
uh-huh,
And once those
yes,
items are retrieved, I mean, since you're already, I mean, we might as well.
uh-huh, yes. Sounds so logical the way you explain it.
Yeah, I mean, it does. I mean, these movies are compelling, man. They have pretty good
Yeah,
plots.
yeah, and you just don't know where they're going, right?
So
Anything could
here is the
happen.
first. I'm an idiot because this is when I first time I watched it was when I realized that the hospital is like on his property.
Yes, yes,
So I
yeah,
didn't realize that prior to this.
yeah. I didn't either. I think it makes perfect sense that it
Yeah.
would be there, but yeah, I sort of thought it was in town, and then he drives out here to go home. But I
So when
think
she
there were,
called him about the hospital, I was like, oh, he's taking off all this stuff and he has to drive out there. And while
yeah,
he's driving there, the boyfriend's gonna sneak in the house and see what's going on,
yeah,
because he said he had a hunch. I thought his hunch is, all right, let me get the doctor away from the house, then I'll sneak in the house and look around. And I thought maybe he'd bump into the daughter. He say, what's wrong? Her mask accidentally falls off and he sees her face. I thought a sequence like that was upcoming when
yeah.
they got him away from the house, but I didn't know the house was like 5 minutes from the hospital.
No, yeah, I didn't realize that either. Um, and yeah, it kind of feels like it's almost just a coincidence that he doesn't remove that girl's face. It's just, oh, these guys have interrupted me. It's not really anything heroic that prevents him from doing it. And these cops here, they seem to just be falling for this here. Like, oh, the girl left. Oh, I guess she left. Oh well,
And
it's
they
it's
don't even play into anything at the end either.
yeah,
It's like they hear her scream before they leave and they pull off the car like, wait a minute, did you hear that? And then they run to the house or drive to the house. None of
yeah,
that happens. And
yeah,
I thought that maybe him showing up was like, huh, weren't you at your house? Why do you still have on like your prep work for surgery, like your
yeah,
thing. They didn't even ask
yeah.
any of that. Oh,
No, no. You expect them to do more here, but they just seem to accept this. Oh well, I guess she just left and didn't make it home.
yeah.
Oh well, like,
This is the part of the movie where I was getting worried because all those thoughts are playing out in my head, but I'm like, man, that's a lot of action in these last 5 minutes. But
yeah,
then none of that happens.
no,
Because like
no,
we're running out of time for like all of these action sequences I have envisioned in my head. I'm like, wait a minute, all that's gonna happen in 5 minutes? Here we
no,
go. It's like absolutely
yeah,
none of it happens.
no, no. And then this young fiance here just kind of accepts it and is like apologizing for wasting their time. Like, shouldn't he be saying, no, no, you've got to dig deeper. You can't just take his word for it. But he just accepts it too.
Yeah. I mean, it almost comes off as if the director didn't even want to do these scenes and he was forced to do it, so he's going to do it with as little effort as possible to give a thumbs up, the middle finger to the producers. I don't want
Yeah,
to do these stupid cop scenes. I'll show you. I'll make
yeah,
them as bland and as like monotone as possible.
yeah, yeah, maybe. And of course, this is really where she's thinking the shoplifting charge would have been better than this.
Yeah, yeah.
And this
And
is
this is where
interesting.
like it really makes it seem like she's like a simpleton, the daughter,
Yeah,
like the way she's acting. I mean, I mean, I don't know. Maybe in the book, like she got brain trauma in the accident, but she's
yeah,
acting like weird, like not like a normal person. I
yeah,
don't know if it's childlike or simple-minded, but she just
yeah.
has a weird. I don't know.
Well, I think one of the themes that people have talked about is the idea that identity or loss of identity through physical disfigurement, so that she's lost her face and she's wearing a mask, and so she's lost her identity, and she doesn't know who she is in a way. Um,
Oh, this is a brutal scene right here.
it is, yes, the most beautiful woman in the world has just taken it in the neck.
I love the
Yeah,
fact that her last word is why, and she's like tearing up and looking at her. It's a
yeah,
really good performance.
it
I
is.
mean, it's a little old school. The death scene is really old school. The fact
Yeah,
that she has a knife in her throat and she can still say why,
yeah,
it's that old
yeah,
school. Like listen, I'm gonna give a good death scene. I don't care what they're killing me with. I'm gonna give my death scene here, and it's gonna be
yeah,
awesome.
yeah,
But the fact that like she's identified by that, and that necklace also covers up the scar from
yeah,
her facial surgery as well.
yeah,
I thought it was just apropos that that's how she died.
yeah. It's more about the human drama of the moment. And here we have the dogs getting freed. She's freeing everyone. All the prisoners are being freed.
Yeah.
Um,
Again, if I mean, all right, they didn't want to torture dogs, but if they would have just like explained something about like what the hell are these dogs there for? Like, what's he doing with
yeah,
them? Something, even if it didn't physically show he tortured them, maybe
yeah,
saying it in the dialogue at least, so that this
yeah,
scene here would have made more sense.
yeah. Or, there could have been a moment where the dogs kind of disappear, like she goes looking for her dogs. Where's the
And
dog?
also,
Oh,
he deserves to die. He's like,
yes.
wait a minute, I hear all those dogs like they're running towards me. Let me take a closer look. Like,
Yeah,
what?
yeah,
He clearly hears them. So
yeah,
his first instinct is to open a door.
yeah. This is a great ending for the character here, I think.
Yeah.
Um, but
And
I was
this is
also,
this is the third of the gruesome scenes.
oh yeah,
Is that quick shot of his face with like his eyeball out at the
oh
end is
yeah,
pretty
yeah,
gruesome.
yeah, totally. And I was going to
This
say that
this movie reminds me a little bit of Vampire. It's not as artistic as
oh yes,
Vampire, but it's
yeah,
one of those like other art house horror films that's just all about the
yes,
visuals and not really about the story that's going on. The story is just
yes,
to move you along to like the visuals and stuff like that. This is less
yes,
art house in that, but it's kind of in the same ballpark as it.
yes. And I'm sure Franju would have been familiar with that film and probably would have admired it and even screened it in his club years earlier. Um, but this kind of reminds me a bit of maybe The Bride of Frankenstein or something here, where she kind of realizes in the end, that she's a monster or she's part of this monstrous thing, and so she's going to kind of destroy it. She's going to end it here. You know, like we
It's
belong dead.
apropos that this is a gothic film because she's acting like a little gothic teenager. She's like,
Yeah,
man, I don't want to live. I want to die. But she doesn't want to die. She wants to talk about the fact that she doesn't want to
yes,
live because instead of killing
yeah,
herself, she killed everyone else. And she
yes,
continues to live being like emo and gothic.
yeah. And she
I
just
mean, if
walks
she
into the
really felt she had a miserable existence, it would have been suicide and they would have been mourning her. Instead, she just kills them and she just walks off being like emo or gothic or whatever.
yeah. She's just walking into the darkness with her birds here.
Yes. And as she walks into the darkness, we walk into the light. And you have just watched the No Rules Film School podcast. Class
Right.
dismissed.